hundreds of my friends and everybody else that gave their lives for what? A country of today. No, I'm sorry. The sacrifice wasn't worth the result that it is now.
Breaking. Beneath a grey November sky, the nation gathered for Remembrance Day. And as the bugles fell silent, King Charles spoke, "Veterans must come first." But when the king spoke of honour, Prime Minister Keir Starmer stayed silent while luxury hotels filled with migrants funded by British taxpayers. The soldier cried, the king warned. Downing Street looked away. This is not remembrance. This is reckoning. Across Britain, the cracks can no longer be hidden. 1 million elderly Britons wait over 12 hours for hospital care each year. 150,000 aged over 90 are left on trolley in silent corridors. The state pension stands at £230 a week, a number neat enough to disguise the cold. Meanwhile, £8 million a day funds hotel rooms for £32,000 migrants, complete with buffet, Wi-Fi, and guards at the door. Even those who once fought under the Union Jack now queue at food banks. 0.3% of veterans officially listed as homeless. The kingdom built on sacrifice now worships convenience. The Parliament debates. The press explains, the people endure. And through it all, King Charles watches the last living symbol of duty, trapped in a nation that no longer remembers what duty means. Britain's streets are lit, but its soul is dimming. The silence before the king speaks will not last forever. The chamber expected ceremony. What it received was a reckoning. A nation that forgets its debts to the living, said King Charles, will one day owe the debt. The words hit harder than any policy paper. And for once, the numbers could not hide. Nearly 200,000 pensioners have reported skipping meals to pay heating bills. More than 5,000 veterans in England and Wales spent last winter without a fixed home. At the same time, £3.9 billion was poured into hotels for asylum housing funds that could have built 10,000 permanent veteran units or cleared half of the pension arrears still unpaid across local councils. The king attacked no one yet. The whole nation understood. It was no longer politics. It was a verdict. Each number he spoke became a mirror reflecting the cruelty Britain had built for itself. That night, silence fell around Buckingham, not of reverence, but of fear. By dawn, the government answered not with words, but with a signature. A new directive quietly approved the transfer of 2,800 asylum seekers into 2 decommissioned military bases in North Yorkshire and Kent. The irony was surgical. The barracks, where generations of fathers once learned to hold a rifle to defend Britain, have now become shelters for those the nation has never dared to call its own. Within hours, satellite images of Catterick Garrison appeared online. Rows of prefabs, fences newly crowned with razor wire. A statement from Downing Street called it a cost-saving measure, estimating savings of £6 million a month. But veterans groups called it desecration. These grounds were built for honour, one former officer said. Now they're warehouses for policy failure. Protests followed in silence. Poppies pinned to gates. Wreaths left outside military museums, handmade signs reading, "The debt has been reversed." Across Britain, our knees turned to dread. For the first time in memory, the Crown and the Cabinet faced each other. Across remembrance, the King had not drawn a line. He had made them cross it. And deep inside Whitehall, one memo whispered the order: contain the anger. Control the story. End this before it spreads. It began with silence and then it moved. From the veterans' halls to the council estates, from old naval towns to industrial ghosts, Britain stepped into the streets. No slogans, no parties, just memory turned into motion. In Birmingham, thousands stood beneath pouring rain, holding faded photographs instead of banners. In Glasgow, church bells tolled 13 times once for every decade since the last war. Outside Catterick, a boy placed his grandfather's beret on the gate. It was live-streamed 40 million times before the government could blink. The police expected violence. They found discipline rows of pensioners in silence, their medals gleaming like small acts of defiance. Crowds didn't shout. They stared. And that stare, that cold, unwavering stare, pierced deeper than any riot could. By nightfall, 12 cities had filled their main squares. Government ministers called it an emotional misunderstanding. But emotion was not the threat. Memory was. For the first time in decades, the nation wasn't demanding change. It was demanding to be worthy of its dead. The next battle wasn't fought on the streets. It was fought on air. Within hours, Britain's media split like glass under pressure. State channels echoed the government's script reassurance restraint recovery. But independent outlets refused the edit. Footage flooded every feed. Elderly men fainting in vigils. A police officer wiping tears as he removed a wreath. And a young reporter whispering live. They're not protesting. They're remembering the government's press office issued new orders. No footage of military sites. No mention of the king. No use of the word betrayal. Editors obeyed for a day. Then leaks began. Emails marked top-secret memos titled Royal Damage Control. Public trust cratered. 2 national anchors resigned on live TV declaring they'd rather report the truth than rehearse it. International networks broadcast what domestic ones would not. The crown had broken with the state. By the week's end, Britain wasn't just divided. It was dueling with its own reflection. A monarchy speaking truth, a government silencing memory, and a people suddenly forced to choose between them. Inside the palace, the air turned electric. Tradition collided with truth. Advisors urged restraint. The king's words had already taken markets and ministries, but he refused to retreat behind ceremony. If silence built this decay, he said, then silence will not cure it. Those who had known him longest said they had never heard his voice carry such steel. Behind him, portraits of monarchs past seemed to watch, not with pride, but warning. Meanwhile, Downing Street strategists debated how to contain a constitutional wildfire. A senior aide leaked one memo. Public approval for the king at 78%. Government trust at 19%. Momentum irreversible. The phrase moral authority resurfaced in political discourse for the first time in a generation. And as Britain argued over power, the palace became something no one expected, a symbol of conscience. That night, cathedrals across the country lit their towers in white. It wasn't sanctioned nor coordinated. It simply happened as if the old country had decided to pray for itself. The king said, "No more." He didn't need to. His silence now spoke louder than any broadcast in Westminster. By midweek, fear found its shape policy memos stacked like sandbags. 11 emergency meetings in 4 days. Each one began with panic and ended with denial. The Prime Minister's face appeared on every screen, reciting the word stability until it lost all meaning. But outside those walls, the nation's patience snapped. Holers blocked motorways. Nurses staged vigils instead of shifts. The Royal British Legion suspended cooperation with the Home Office. And for the first time in living memory, the palace guards received written threats not from enemies abroad, but from within. Civil servants whispered that the king might be stripped of ceremonial funding, a desperate plan, one minister called financial discipline. But the public saw it differently. Vengeance wrapped in bureaucracy. On the 7th day, the palace balcony lights remained until dawn. Reporters counted it as a signal that the king would not yield. The footage reached 90 countries before breakfast. Inside Downing Street, silence, then one voice trembling. "If he speaks again, we fall." No one argued. They all knew it was already happening. Dawn broke like revelation. Every front page carried the same photo. An old man saluting the palace from the opposite bank of the Thames. No caption needed. The protest was over, but the awakening had begun. Across towns and villages, people wrote letters to Buckingham Palace, not to complain, but to confess that they too had forgotten what dignity looked like. Teachers began each class with a minute of silence. Train stations paused their announcements at noon. Even stock exchanges opened late in recognition of national reflection. For the first time since the pandemic, the country moved in unison, not from fear, but from shame, and shame, when shared, became clarity. Economists spoke of market volatility. But the true collapse was moral, not financial. Britain had remembered itself and in doing so unmasked those who governed it. That night, a message appeared on the palace's official account. Just 6 words. Truth requires no permission to speak. It was shared 32 million times before the government could react. And somewhere in the echo, the nation realized this was no longer crisis. It was correction. At sunset, Britain stopped. The screens went dark. The debate ceased. And for a single minute, the country stood still. A silence not of mourning, but of reckoning. No one ordered it. It simply happened as if the land itself needed to breathe. Flags hung motionless. The wind held its breath. Across the river, the palace lights glowed. The king stood at the window alone. The man who had said 22 words and moved a nation that had forgotten how to feel. History will remember this week, not for riots or reform, but for a silence that thundered louder than any speech. If you still believe truth has a place in Britain, stand with us. Subscribe, share, and never look away, because nations fall when their people stop listening. And this time, the silence spoke first.